we need to accept that to truly realize all the promises of migration, we need to openly assess current systems. Instead, maybe of spending billions on border enforcement, governments could consider investing in targeted approach that will link migration trends and labor market needs with development investments in vulnerable communities. Thank you very much for this invitation. I would like to basically take the floor on behalf of our Director General, Ms. Amy Pope, who unfortunately couldn't make this illustrious event. So it's a real pleasure to be here today amongst such a raft of distinguished guests. And I'm going to talk about migration and the socioeconomic benefits of migration. And I think that while those of us in this room have different perspectives and perceptions on the true economic benefits of global migration, I trust that we all want to see this age-old phenomenon better managed for the benefit of individuals and societies. So let us first accept as a precondition that reaping the greatest benefits of economic migration will require a coherent, consistent, and human rights central approach. This is critical to ensure that migration and migrants are recognized as vital drivers of economic resilience, growth, and prosperity. This reality undermines much of our work at the International Organization for Migration. Our shared goal, and that of our member states, is to harness those enormous benefits whilst addressing the challenges and pitfalls of irregular migration. In other words, to further develop and support a global migration system with solutions that make sense in our increasingly mobile and interconnected world. Our aim is to ensure that migration is safe, orderly, and humane, but also smart and strategic. The drivers of migration displacement are increasing and becoming more complex. As we heard at COP29 in November last year, the number of people globally affected by climate change now exceed those displaced by conflict. And the projected numbers in the absence of concerted, urgent actions are alarming and fraught with far too many human tragedies. According to IOM's Missing Migrant Project, almost 73,000 migrants have died since 2014, and the remains of 30,000 have never been found lost at sea. The deadliest migration route today is still the central Mediterranean, where we have at least 24,500 people who have perished since 2014. So beyond those tragic numbers, one must ask oneself why news reports are regularly covering these tragedies and not the tangible social economic benefits of migration, nor the many valuable contributions migrants make to their host and home countries. Maybe that is because those gains are all too often obscured by negative political discourses on migration, leading to the unfair stigmatization of entire communities who are sometimes made responsible for more systemic shortcomings. And even though regular migration in the world's wealthiest countries surged in 2023, bringing clear economic gains, election campaigns in many countries, including here in Germany, have focused on concerns, including security concerns over irregular migration. Ironically, many negative migration rhetorics are playing out against a backdrop where migration is increasingly seen and essential for many states. Wealthy countries, including Germany, have critical labor market gaps as countries are experiencing demographics that are shifting towards aging, shrinking populations. Demand in the IT sector, engineering, healthcare, and science, but also in sectors such as transport, hotel and catering are very real, yet they're challenging to meet. A recent study by the Bertelsmann Foundation showed that without more immigration, Germany's workforce could drop by 10% by 2040, putting its economy further at risk. This prevents this. Germany apparently needs 280,000 skilled workers from other countries each year until 2040. So small and medium-sized businesses are struggling to find suitable trainees and are therefore looking beyond national borders, including to people from outside the EU, who may, under certain circumstances, undertake vocational trainings in Germany. So the official portal from the federal government, Make It in Germany, covers all important information for skilled workers from abroad. The website also offers information for small and medium-sized enterprises who wish to recruit international professionals. Considering that 30 of the largest economies in the world have labor shortages, and those unfilled jobs cost those economies an estimated $1.3 billion of lost GDP, there is now increased competition in attracting and retaining migrants at all levels of skills. So beyond addressing those pressing labor shortages in developed countries, we also need to consider the significant contributions that migrants and diaspora communities make to the economic development of their country of origin and also to the well-being of their families back home. According to IOM's 2024 World Migration Report, international remittances, that is basically all the financial and in-kind contributions that are made by migrants to their families and communities back home, reach $831 billion in 2022, up from about $120 billion in 2000. So for us, remittance represent the most direct link between migration and economic development. However, one has to accept that there are challenges on how best to maximize the development impact of remittances through productive investments and job creations. High-income destination countries also benefit from migration through increased supplies of labor, skills, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Migrants, we have to accept, also pay taxes and contribute to social security system. And according to one study by the World Bank, 83% of native-born population in the 22 richest OECD countries have experienced a welfare gain because of immigration from non-OECD countries. Another OECD report also indicates that on average, during the 2006-2018 period, migrants in the OECD countries contributed more in taxes and contributions that governments spent on their social protection, health, and education. So what needs to be done to reap the full benefits, economic benefits of international migration? The short answer, I think, is that we need to further improve migration governance and consider displacement pressures, humanitarian concerns, and labor market needs. So while there's a need to address the root causes of migration that are linked to climate change, man-made and natural disasters, a lack of socio-economic perspectives at home, and demographic and labor imbalances, we also need to accept that too many migrants find it impossible to access legal channels and regular pathways, leaving them all too often no choice but to resort to irregular migration and asylum processes. So to effectively promote safe, orderly, and regular migration, governments with IOM's backing need to commit to a comprehensive and strategic approach that will basically combine development efforts, assisting migrant hosting countries, and opening pathways for vulnerable people to migrate legally. There is also a need to strengthen international cooperation and partnership, not just between and within states, but also with the private sector, with the youth, with diaspora members, and many more, leading to a creation of innovative solutions that will hopefully sustain further socio-economic impact and contribute to meaningful change. So facilitating pathways for regular migration is one of the key objectives for IOM, alongside with saving lives and driving solutions for displacement. Our overriding aim is to ensure that migration is well managed and that its full potential is harnessed. This will, in our view, strongly drive growth and prosperity for everyone, and at the same time will protect those most vulnerable. So regular pathways have many components and cover many activities that aim to offer viable alternatives to irregular migration by developing rights-based approaches and policies to further strengthen migration governance. To inform the public debate on the socio-economic benefits of migration, I think we need to explicitly recognize the link between development and migration. We know that poor development outcomes often fuel irregular migration, and we also know that migration powers development. Are we all aware that migrants' remittances significantly boost economies at home and in OECD countries, that they actually represent more than official development assistance? How can we communicate on the realities that resilient economies will depend on the ability to address and meet growing labor demands in many high and middle-income countries? For now, all too often, irregular migrants find jobs in the informal markets of their destination countries. This clearly indicates an imbalance between irregular migration pathways and economic needs, particularly in sectors like agriculture, construction, hospitality, and healthcare services. Therefore, we need to consider and create pragmatic, down-to-earth, labor-responsive migration policies to address those challenges. So by directing development funds towards skill training, by facilitating the integration of migrants into job markets, I think we can maximize the economic contributions of migrants in host communities, countries, but also in their country of origin. It's also important to ensure that trained workers have access to job opportunities through ethical, regular channels. And I think this is something that needs to be paid attention, because unfortunately we read all too often stories of migrants being exploited in various sectors, including agriculture. It's also, in our view, equally essential that the acquired knowledge that migrants acquire through their processes are invested back in their home communities through apprenticeships and circular migration programs, for instance. And diaspora communities are particularly important, and they have to play a role to make sure that we enhance local skills services and trainings, and we basically facilitate the transfer of knowledge and skills acquired through the migration process. Yeah, there's also obviously a need and an opportunity for people, for experienced migrants, to contribute meaningfully in tangible ways to the green transition. We've been talking about the green transition for many years now. We already know that the growth in demand for green skills in many countries is already higher than the availability within the own labor market. And this gap is something that we feel international migration can certainly help to fill. So I think in conclusion, we need to accept that to truly realize all the promises of migration, we need to openly assess current systems. Instead, maybe of spending billions on border enforcement, governments could consider investing in targeted approach that will link migration trends and labor market needs with development investments in vulnerable communities. The goal is definitely to try and establish schemes, for instance, here in Germany, such as the recognition of qualifications, that will empower prospective migrants to connect with opportunities and enable them to reinvest their knowledge and resources in their communities of origin. And I think it is only then that we can make sure that migration truly benefits everyone and everywhere. Thank you very much.